Skyrim is a land built on anticipation. You see a ruin in the distance and imagine ancient secrets hidden beneath its stones. You discover a cave entrance carved into the mountainside and expect danger waiting in the dark. Every location in Skyrim feels like the beginning of a story. Some caves lead to sprawling underground cities. Some contain powerful artifacts. Others hide forgotten lore that expands the entire history of Tamriel. Because of this, players naturally learn to associate caves with reward, discovery, adventure. But every once in a while, Skyrim breaks that expectation. And no location demonstrates that better than Broken Helm Hollow. At first glance, it looks like any other dungeon in the province. A cave entrance carved into the rocky hills south of Riften. A name that sounds dangerous, the promise of bandits, treasure and hidden secrets. But once you step inside, something becomes clear almost immediately. Broken Helm Hollow is not what you expected. In fact, it might be the most underwhelming cave in all of Skyrim. The first strange thing about Broken Helm Hollow is its name. Broken Helm sounds dramatic. It suggests a battlefield, a fallen warrior, or some forgotten tragedy buried beneath a stone. In a game where location names often hint at deeper lore, places like Bleak Falls Barrow or Labyrinthian, players naturally assume there must be a story here. But Broken Helm Hollow never quite delivers on that promise. The cave sits in the hills south of Riften, tucked quietly between forests and rocky outcrops. It's not particularly hidden, but it's also not along the main roads most players travel. You might discover it while wandering through the rift, or you might only visit it after receiving a Radiant quest. Either way, the entrance gives the impression that something meaningful waits inside. But once you enter the cave, that illusion quickly begins to fade. Like many caves in Skyrim, Broken Helm Hollow is occupied by bandits. Bandits are one of the most common enemy types in the game. They fill forts, caves, ruins, and abandoned towers across the province. And while they can be fun to fight, they rarely create memorable experiences on their own. Broken Helm Hollow is no exception. Inside the cave, players encounter a small group of bandits using the location as a hideout. They've built makeshift camps, placed torches along the cave walls, and scattered supplies throughout the tunnels. It's exactly what you would expect from a standard bandit den. There are no unique enemy types, no unusual combat mechanics, no elaborate traps or puzzles. Just a handful of enemies guarding a cave that feels almost identical to dozens of others across Skyrim. And that's where the first sense of disappointment appears. One of the most memorable aspects of Skyrim's best dungeons is mystery. Bleak Falls Barrow introduces ancient Nordic puzzles and dragon lore. Blackreach reveals a massive underground ecosystem. Even smaller caves often hide journals or environmental storytelling that hints at deeper narratives. Broken Helm Hollow lacks almost all of that. There are no elaborate ruins, no lost civilizations, no strange magical experiments hidden in the shadows. The cave is simply just a cave. Its tunnels twist through stone walls that look nearly identical to countless other locations in the game. Its rooms contain crates, bedrolls, and campfires, the standard decorations of a bandit hideout. Nothing about the environment suggests that anything unusual ever happened here. And without that sense of mystery, the cave begins to feel strangely forgettable. Broken Helm Hollow does include one small narrative detail. Inside the cave, players can find a captive prisoner locked in a cage. It's one of the few places he might be. This prisoner is usually part of a Radiant rescue quest, meaning the game randomly selects the location when an NPC asks you to save someone. At first, this might seem like it might add depth to the cave's story. After all, prisoners imply conflict. Conflict suggests narrative, but in practice, the interaction is extremely simple. You unlock the cage, the prisoner thanks you, and then they leave. There's no elaborate dialogue, no dramatic revelation, no hidden twists that changes how you see the location. The rescue happens quickly and quietly. leaving the cave feeling just as ordinary as it was before. To understand why Broken Helm Hollow feels so underwhelming, it helps to look at Skyrim's Radiant quest system. Bethesda designed Skyrim with hundreds of locations that could be used interchangeably for certain quests. Bandit camps, caves, forts. The game randomly assigns these locations to missions like bounty hunts or rescue operations. This system allows Skyrim to generate endless quests, but it also means that some locations were designed primarily as generic quest spaces rather than unique experiences. Broken Helm Hollow fits perfectly into that category. It exists less as a meaningful place in the world and more as a stage where Radiant quests can occur. A cave designed for functionality rather than storytelling. Even the physical design of Broken Helm Hollow contributes to its reputation. The cave is relatively small. Its layout is straightforward. Players move through a short series of tunnels before reaching the main chamber where the bandit leader resides. After that, the cave just ends. There are no secret passages, no branching paths, no hidden chambers waiting to be discovered. Compared to Skyrim's more complex dungeons, Broken Helm Hollow feels almost unfinished. Not broken in a technical sense, but broken in the sense that it never evolves beyond its simple design. Another reason the cave feels so underwhelming is its rewards. Skyrim often motivates exploration with unique items or valuable treasure. Players enter dangerous ruins hoping to find powerful weapons, enchanted armor, or rare artifacts. But Broken Helm Hollow offers very little in that regard. The bandit leader carries standard equipment. The chests contain typical loot. Nothing about the rewards feel particularly special. Which means that by the time you leave the cave, you may not feel like you've discovered anything meaningful at all. Just another small encounter in a world full of them. Perhaps the biggest problem with Broken Helm Hollow is how easily it disappears from memory. Skyrim is filled with hundreds of locations, and many of them stand out because of something distinctive. A strange puzzle, a dramatic boss fight, a piece of lore that changes how you view the world. Broken Helm Hollow lacks that defining moment. It doesn't surprise you, it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't reveal anything new about Skyrim's history. It simply exists. And in a game as massive as Skyrim, that might be the most dangerous thing a location can do. Because places that don't stand out are the ones players forget entirely. And yet Broken Helm Hollow still teaches us something interesting about Skyrim's design. Even though the cave itself is simple, it contributes to the illusion that Skyrim is a living world. Not every location can be legendary. Not every cave can hide ancient secrets. Some places exist simply because people needed somewhere to live, hide, or survive. From that perspective, Broken Helm Hollow begins to make more sense. It isn't meant to be extraordinary. It's meant to feel like a small temporary shelter used by outlaws trying to avoid the law itself. A minor detail in a much larger world. Broken Helm Hollow may never become one of Skyrim's most famous locations. It doesn't contain ancient magic, it doesn't hide powerful artifacts, and it certainly doesn't challenge the Dragonborn in any meaningful way. But in a strange way, that's what makes it interesting, because it reminds us that Skyrim's world is larger than its biggest moments. For every legendary ruin or epic quest, there are dozens of small places quietly filling the spaces between them. Caves used by bandits, shelters forgotten by history, locations that players enter once and then never think about again. Broken Helm Hollow is one of those places, underwhelming, forgettable, but still part of the vast world that makes Skyrim feel real. And sometimes the most ordinary places reveal just as much about a world as the legendary ones.